Hello friends. Push flag and urgent flag behaves a little opposite to what their name suggests. Let's just go in a bit depth here. When we speak about the push flag, it doesn't care about the buffer being completed. When we say buffer being completed, that means as per the MSS, a complete segment being created. Push doesn't wait for that. Whatever data is there at the time of instructions being provided by the application layer, it would simply go ahead and push that data out. That's why it is called push flag. It doesn't wait for the buffer to be completed or the segment to be created. Since it doesn't have to wait for anything to be completed like that, the data what is sent as it is, and it is delivered in sequence. When we would go to the urgent flag, we would understand more about what we mean by in sequence. When there is a concept called Nagel algorithm. Nagel algorithm says that why we are misusing the bandwidth, why we are wasting the bandwidth by sending small characters or small data. Why Nagel said that? The reason being that when we send some data, let's say 1 character, 2 character, so the data bits and bytes, they are very small, but over and above it we add a 40 byte TCP plus IP header. So that means 20 byte TCP header, 20 bytes IP header. So 40 bytes additional. Let's say we are sending one keystroke or two keystrokes. So that means just to send 1 or 2 characters, we are wasting 40 bytes of data together. And by sending these small chunks, we are in fact creating congestion. So Nagel says that don't do that. First, keep on completing your buffer. Whatever data you get, just keep on collecting that. Make segments as per the MSS value. And once you receive an ACK from the receiver, then go ahead and send those completed segments. Mind it should be the completed segments. Send those. The others, keep on completing them. And as soon as you get another ACK from the receiver, send those completed segments again. So this is what Nagel algorithm says. Now, push flag works opposite to it. Push flag says, no, I don't need to do that. If it is important, like in case of telnet, when we do the telnet, we put 1 keystroke there, 1 or 2 keystroke as part of command. Anything that we don't need to run, we don't wait for any sort of completion or complete data would be there. We need that command to be run. We need that character to be typed. So we just type it and hit enter. So that is a perfect example of push flag. In that case, it completely nullifies the Nagel's algorithm and sends that data immediate. So this is called push flag is actually a negate of Nagel's algorithm. This you can understand. Example telnet we already discussed. Bandwidth, wastage, header, overhead. This we already discussed. 20 bytes TCP header, 20 bytes IP header. This is all being used. Now it says push flag, but in actual it is the urgent one. That means it doesn't wait for anything. This is the actual urgent data. While you might be expecting urgency in the urgent flag, but actually it doesn't happen. I'll show you how. When we speak about urgent flag, then the mandatory requirement is that it has to complete the complete segment as per the MSS value. It is not like push that would go with small chunks of data immediately. No, it has to keep on completing the segments even if there are urgent bytes in between. And when it gets ACK from the receiver, it would send the complete segment as it is. So if I make you understand this part, that means when complete segment, that means in case of urgent, we don't push the data immediately. We follow the complete protocol. We let the buffer to be completed. A segment is created as per the MSS. Then the segment is created at TCP, 4th layer. Then that completed segment goes to the network layer, then to the data link, then to the physical layer of the sender. Then from there, it goes to the receiver side physical layer, then data link layer, then network layer, then the transport layer. Till that point of time, there is no urgency at all in the data. It goes normally as it should. So that is a very important point to remember here. Urgent data doesn't mean that it would go straight away. It has to follow the complete OSI or TCP IP model, because the data flow would happen only from the physical layer, whether it's wireless data or wired data. It has to go from the physical layer. When I was interviewing one of the candidates, he said that transport layer from this particular sender side, the data would go directly from transport layer to the other transport layer on the receiver side. So that is wrong. It is not possible. Data has to travel to the physical layer only. So just remember about this part. Now, till this point of time, the data flow is normal. There is no sort of urgency in it. Now, why is it called urgent flag then? In case of urgent flag, there are several bytes. Let's say there are 10 bytes of data, and out of these 10 bytes, 1 to 5 are marked as urgent data. So now there are two concepts. One is an urgent flag and one is an urgent pointer. Urgent flag would be held by all these bytes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because they are urgent data. So they would hold that urgent flag. Now, urgent pointer would be at the very end of this data. Let's say our data is from 1 to 5, that's urgent. Then the urgent pointer would say the next value after our urgent data. That means urgent pointer value would be 6 if 1 to 5 is the urgent data. These bytes, urgent bytes of data, they are sent to the transport layer of the receiver side through a normal process, no urgency at all. Now, when the application layer on the receiver side of the transport layer sees that data, okay, there is an urgent data in it. So now what it would do is, it would immediately fetch the data out of the sequence. So this is where the important part is. That means there might be 50 bytes of data, out of which only 1 to 5 is urgent. So in that case, application layer would only take the 1 to 5 urgent data on priority, first process this one, and then it would process the remaining data. So that means here the urgent flag and urgent pointer comes in action. So that particular data is processed first, and that is out of sequence. That means it doesn't have to wait for the data to be processed as per what it is coming in the segment. No, it would just take the urgent data and process it first. Now, as you can see, from the sender side transport layer till the receiver side transport layer, there is no special handling at data. It goes through the normal OSI or the TCP IP model. There is no urgency, no speed anywhere. The urgency only occurs when the application layer on the receiver side would see the data, urgent data, in that segment. Then only the urgency would happen, otherwise nothing. Now let's say there is a segment A, B being processed at that time. Then a segment C comes in that contains 1 to 5 of urgent data. Now what would happen is application would process A segment first, B segment second, and then that urgent data would be added at the end of the existing segment, that is B. Obviously it would be processed first, so it would be placed right there, and then the remaining data in the C, which was not urgent, it would be sent for processing. This is how it works. So in interviews, you might be asked that for this urgent data, 1 to 5 bits or 510 bits or whatever it is a new segment created? So you should answer no, a new segment is not created. It is just that that particular urgent data, those specific bytes, are placed at the end of an existing segment which is already being processed. So they are prioritized basically. Urgent flag and urgent pointer, don't get confused in that part. As I mentioned, out of the 10 bytes, if 1 to 5 are marked as urgent, then the urgent pointer would say 6th value. That means at this point, before this particular place, before this particular value, there is the urgent data. Please look for the urgent data just before this point. So that is the urgent pointer. Although it is urgent, but most of the time what we see is that urgent is used with the push flag. Both are used in combination most of the time, but it is not necessary. They might be used individually as well. But if urgent is used in combination with push, then it further prioritizes the processing of data. Once the data is processed by the application layer, then once the application layer receives that data, then the urgent flag is down. Obviously, it doesn't make sense. This was the whole and sole purpose of keeping that urgent flag up, holding that, hey, this is urgent data. Once the application layer has already seen it and taken it for processing, then the urgent flag is kept down. Now here is an example of a capture, Wireshark capture, where you can see where you would see that push flag. So as you can see in a packet, you can see that once you go to TCP, then you go to flags, and under the flags you can see which flag is being used. Here it is showing as push and ACK. For our urgent case, it would be showing flag as urgent. This is the urgent pointer that we were discussing. That is a part of TCP header, and you have to remember that it always says the value just after the urgent data, the very next value after the urgent data. Now let's say someone asks you that how would you find out which is the push, where is the push flag, or the packets which shows the push flag or the urgent flag in the Wireshark packet capture. So these are the two flags that you can see at the bottom. tcp.flags.push equals to 1, that is for push flag, and tcp.flags.urg urgent equals to 1 for the urgent flag. This was it for this particular video. Thank you so much for your time. If you like this video, please like it, share it, subscribe it. In case you have any suggestions for me, as I'm just starting with this channel, in case my speed is slow or it is fast, or any feedback that you would like to give to me, that is more than welcome. That would help me in improving myself to make better content for you in the future. The goal of this particular channel is to help you and the network engineers in clearing their interviews basically. Because most of the time what happens is network engineers, even though being very experienced, they struggle during the interviews. So these kind of questions, these kind of tricky questions would help you in understanding the concepts better and to perform you well in the interview so that you can clear them. And that is the objective. In case you have any sort of questions, let's say you went to some interview, you were asked some questions, then you can go ahead and share those questions in the comment section. Based on my knowledge, based on my experience, I would try to answer your questions, and if a concept is sufficient enough for me to prepare a video, I would definitely go ahead and prepare one for you. So all those tricky questions, all those difficult questions that were being asked to you as a network engineer as part of the interview, please share those in the comment section. I'll prepare more videos on those. Thank you so much for watching.